Hi, Masterminds. Welcome to a Monday Market Update. I'm going to make this one reasonably quick, but it's all about what's going on geopolitically. Very similar to what we saw with Russia, Ukraine, where we were talking about how this could quickly spiral out of control if Russia invades, and sort of the historical implications of when a larger nation or even a bigger nation attacking a smaller nation type dynamic does happen in modern history. Tends to tank markets. It's almost to like sell the cannons and what is it? I've forgotten the saying. It's really, really annoying me. But essentially, you want to sell leading into the event and then buy just after the event. And again, I hate talking about markets during a time when you just go on Twitter right now, or X, whatever it's called, and it is just a deplorable place to be. You kind of just have to turn it off and walk away. But it is very difficult because there's a lot of signal and a lot of input just filtering through. But it's pretty horrific what's going on in Israel and also Palestine currently, and the broad implications are incredibly serious for the macro landscape. And for one, and I'll show you the charts in a sec. For one, this really does show. And it's maybe not something that anyone's really thinking. It really does show the United States, the American empire, in serious decline. I think it started with Afghanistan, then it moved on to Ukraine and Russia. Russia felt emboldened they could actually do that. Then you've got Israel, last kind of democracy in the Middle East, heavily backed by the United States, and then you've got Iran feeding Hezbollah, feeding Hamas, and they've just attacked Israel in one of essentially Israel's 9/11. So in terms of people killed and how it just affects things. Saudi Arabia and Israel are actually going to broker a groundbreaking alliance partnership type situation. That's now off the table. It's really erupted, and this can spiral and fracture out of control very, very quickly. And again, it just shows me that the United States is not the feared hyperpower that it once was. They are plugging gaps and leaks everywhere now. And you just have to think, what is this signal next? If the Americans are distracted so totally by Ukraine and now Israel trying to hold everything together, and again, plug those leaks and gaps, their resources are stretched very, very thin. Militarily, let's say China wants to hit Taiwan right now. Does this seem like a really good time to do that? I'd say yes, absolutely. What if North Korea now wants to see that America's distracted and weak, in decline, all that, and goes, let's hit South Korea. You can also look at India, Pakistan. You can look at the Balkans with Serbia, Kosovo, and the surrounding nations. This is a really dangerous situation for the world, and I think we are now. What Israel signals, what Russia and Ukraine signaled first of all, and then the Afghanistan again, I think was that signal to the world, and then Russia took that in. So the calamitous exit from Afghanistan was sort of Russia. Okay, this might be our time. China thought a bit the same thing. And then we've got now Israel blowing up the Middle East, or Hamas and the militants around it. But Iran is signaling that they're backing those people around Israel that want to do harm to Israel. Iran hates Israel as well. So does that bring the Americans against Iran and create a larger war in the region? It could spiral very, very quickly. And again, I think this signals the world's going into a much, much dangerous, more volatile place. We've been very, very lucky to essentially live in a relatively peaceful world since the Second World War. Vietnam and a few other things happening along the way, of course. But yeah, it's the fourth turning. It really is. It's that reset moment where we're coming with that empire is. I don't think it's the end for America at all. I think this might be that jolt that they need to flip the script a little bit here. But yeah, it's looking very, very dangerous. And I probably digressed there a lot, but what it means for markets, in my view, is a bit of fear, a bit of panic. Like we saw with Russia, Ukraine, we're going to see oil go up again. That's going to increase inflation fears. We're going to see those scarce, harder assets like gold and now Bitcoin, I think, going to get a really strong bid over the next little phase. But I think in the short term, it's going to be knee-jerk reaction, flight to safety, like stocks are going to hit, oil's going to go up. I would expect US Treasuries could get a bid, because we know yields are going out of control. So obviously, Treasuries getting sold off. So does that bring in capital because people are fearful and they buy those Treasuries to lock in that yield? Or are they looking at the US looking a bit weak, teetering, and they don't want to buy those Treasuries? Instead, they might look at buying a gold or a Bitcoin. In my view, this is a really wild setup, and even though the world's kind of feeling very volatile, it's a wild setup for Bitcoin to actually really thrive and do what it's supposed to do and be that neutral, decentralized store of value currency in a world just going a bit mad on essentially everything. So a lot of things coming to the head. And again, I've digressed a little bit here, guys. Probably more talking crypto thinking rich, but I wanted to give you my thoughts on where things are going. I'm actually a little bit concerned on how things are going. I'm not a geopolitical expert by any means. I've, never served in the military overseas, or in a strategic sense or anything like that. This is just stuff that I'm picking up over the journey, and it helped us identify when Russia was going to hit Ukraine and how it kind of would go from that. So I'm kind of trying to play it not with what we're seeing right now, but what is the second and third order effects. What's down the line, and it very similar dynamics to Russia and Ukraine. We know what that did to the world economy. The thrust inflation out of control. It increased the scarcity of a lot of these assets like oil and energy and whatnot that we use every single day in our economy. And I don't see that changing. I think of the Middle East, if this escalates even bigger, and I think there's a strong possibility it will do that, because Israel is going to absolutely raise Gaza and just ride right through as in retribution for this 9/11 event that they've got. What are the consequences of that down the road? And I think this is going to turn most of the Middle East against them. It's been a relatively peaceful place for a little while, but Iran's agitating. Turkey's now looking to do some things. So again, we're just going to have to wait for this to play out. But in the short term, this is really a case of look at those safe havens, and I would put crypto here and Bitcoin up here. So they are two different things in my mind right now. Bitcoin is that store of value, decentralized medium of exchange, currency and whatnot. You've got crypto over here, essentially like a speculative tech stock bubble. We know we have strong convictions on that asset class and where it could go, et cetera, et cetera. But Bitcoin is in a different league of its own in these type of environments, in my view. We could see a strong bid on Bitcoin, dominance, absolute rip through the ceiling. Maybe we get up to 29, 30,000, while crypto is just getting crushed because no one wants to put their money in that when the world's going through geopolitical issues. So we have to think in those terms. And I think we've seen this morning that gold's got a really strong bid. I'll just go through some charts to see where we're at. So Bitcoin, I want to say unsurprisingly, but my view is right now Bitcoin's actually going to go sideways until the US stock market comes open. We get a bit more information. I just think we crap here. We go down a little bit. We just go sideways. We consolidate until we get more information, until we can really digest what's going on. But broadly, I think Bitcoin looks really, really good to move back to 29,000, 30,000 in the short term. I think this just looks really, really nice directionally. I think it comes back, it literally follows these arrows and goes up, potentially higher than 30,000, depending on what happens. That's essentially where I see it. We need to remember as well, grappling with the 200-day and week moving average just above us at 28,000, let's say even. We really can't get bullish for those higher prices until we're on top of this incredibly key resistance. Right now, we're grappling underneath it, wick. So it would make sense if we have a bit of a cool off, maybe come down to low 27,000 again, and move through that. Come back actually following with this arrow, maybe 27.5, not all the way down to the low, but just in this. And there is a triangle that I'm watching, or pennant, to starting to form a lower time frame. So I have that drawn there. Might have been validated down here. I'll just double check that. But yeah, I think just holding pattern on Bitcoin. You don't make too many knee-jerk reactions, but I wouldn't be trading altcoins. I would be concerned if Bitcoin starts heading down to low 27,000s and your alerts starting to pop off. I think if it drops beneath that 27,000, we're going to be in a bit of trouble here. And we go down to maybe that 26 low. But right now, I think we just have to, again, just be very cautious, play the ball where it lies. If you're exposed in leverage trades or short-term risk, I would say just pull back from that. Make sure you're just protecting yourself a little bit here. Ethereum low, I'm putting Ethereum in the crypto basket right now. The only thing I'd be looking at holding at all is Bitcoin. Everything else looks a bit suspect. So I believe the US stock market right now is closed. And it had a pretty strong close there. But I think on the back of war fears and geopolitical issues, and the United States are starting to flex a little bit. And I think we're coming to a point too that the US has to feel that they need to flex. They need to show that they are still everyone knows they're a superpower, but everyone needs to see that they can handle everything that's going on. They are going to defend their allies, which is Israel, and they're going to come to the rescue of anyone that needs it within their interests and their sphere of influence. Because right now, I think there's a bit of blood in the water, and if things go the way they could, we could see a lot more frozen wars that have been, suspended for a long time. I discussed the different places at the beginning. Some actors could get very uppity and think this is their time to flex. When the superpower is distracted, weakened, divided, it makes a ton of sense. So we have to be careful, very, very careful where we're putting our money right now. And that's just my view. So S&P, I think S&P can pretty much come down and nuke through these levels. That's just my view. Might come up and retest here. I think this week's going to wreck bulls and bears just significantly. We could have a rally, but I think we chop and then grind down further. That's just my view of what I'm saying. So this is the futures so far. It hasn't opened down really at all, which is fascinating. So we need to just be prepared. It could be a non-event, and markets don't really worry about this, but I disagree. I think if oil's spiking and whatnot, that would be very interesting. We'll look at oil in a second. I just wanted to have a look at gold because it's had a really strong bid this morning, and this is a good case, a good test case for whether Bitcoin is deciding to uncorrelate and do its own thing like it has been doing, because gold's been nuking, stocks have been going down, and all that. And Bitcoin's actually been growing higher. So Bitcoin hasn't been following gold either. But gold has had a significant rally here, and I think this might be a sign that the safe haven is kind of coming back into vogue. Is Bitcoin going to get a bid here? It hasn't so far this morning, but it hasn't dropped either. It's just been sort of meandering and going sideways. So interesting times. I'd be very interested if gold starts breaking up into this channel and moving higher, then that real safe haven trade could be on. But again, this is just a digestion period where the market's trying to tell us something, or I'm not sure what it is just yet, but I suspect it's going to be pretty violent in terms of risk until we know more. If a lot of these Arab nations decide to maybe stay out of this and wait for Israel to do its thing and wait for the maybe more outrage to come from the Palestinian side, because what Israel is about to do, maybe then we'll see a bit more agitation. I think it's a very dynamic situation. We just can't be too sure of anything. And look at yields. So far, not really seeing too much of a bid coming for yields, but I know the bond market is closed today. So that is interesting to note. So this might start to play out over Tuesday, Wednesday. So just be aware of that. So yeah, hold off any risk at the moment, I think, and wait for maybe really nice entries that give you maybe like maybe even start to think about some of these altcoins. We might get about 10 to 20% sell off. That's kind of what I'm thinking in the shorter term. I know I've removed, I think I've said this a million times, I think I've removed a lot of risk this morning from my portfolio. I'm only holding Bitcoin at the moment. It's the only thing I'm really rather keen on at the moment, based on the contrarian store of value trade. I don't think it's behaving like a tech stock at the moment at all. Let's look at WTI. Yeah, so significant rally in West Texas oil, which is essentially the barometer for crude oil prices. And we've seen off that low there, 6%. So this could really ramp higher based on the geopolitical fears. If there's a war in the Middle East, a significant war, which looks like there will be, oil will be disrupted. I know the US has just moved a carrier group to the Mediterranean to help with Israel evacuations, all that kind of stuff around Gaza. So yeah, this can escalate pretty quickly. And we just got to, wait. If there's a declaration of war between Israel and Iran, something like that, if the American personnel starts to be attacked by the Iranians quite openly, then yeah, we're going to see some pretty hairy stuff in markets, I think. So please, just pay attention, have your alert set, remove risk. Again, the only thing that I would be interested in looking at here is gold and Bitcoin. Everything else, just step away from it. Even Bitcoin, please be very aware. It's still, immature, and it has been known in recent times to behave like a tech stock, and it is higher risk. But I think there is arguably a really great case for Bitcoin right now to perform really strongly. Doesn't mean you can't hedge that risk and manage that to the downside. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of some thoughts around macro and where I sit. I'll probably will post this. Probably will post this into the rest of the groups as well. So if you're watching this from the groups, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, make sure to post them, and I'll be happy to answer. I know this is Mastermind clients, but just post your questions, happy to answer how I've come around, my thoughts, and of course, I didn't check on a really important chart, which I'll just quickly look at, and that's the US dollar. I think the US dollar has a really strong case here to rally because of fundamental reasons, not because of technicals and whatnot. And all through this phase, I mean, you could, I'm seeing bearish divergence pop through here. I thought this was a really strong bearish divergence through here, and it still is. But I think the US dollar actually has a pretty strong reason to rally here. Those safe havens will get a bit of a bid because capital will look in my views, let's say stock market nukes, that capital that's being sold off has to go somewhere. Where is that going? Is that going into bonds? If yields are still going up, they're not going into bonds. Where are they going? They're probably going into the US dollar, because people will want to, investors want to sit this one out until the dust settles, and then they can feel a bit more confident and move back in. And if it's not just going to the US dollar as well, we're seeing gold move up, we're seeing Bitcoin go up, well, then you know a lot of the capital is being sold off for gold, maybe silver going up too, you might see that, and maybe Bitcoin, again, a bit more speculative on the side. But yeah, there is reason to think the dollar can actually still rally here, even though this looks ridiculous, just based on fundamental reasons. You know, the dollar rose significantly throughout, you know, multiple turbulent times and through recent military operations. I'm pretty sure it went up quite strongly during the Russia-Ukraine part of the beginning. So, yeah, and I'm just trying to remember, was it sell the drums, buy the cannons? That was the saying. So the war drums leading up to the event, you want to sell into that, and then you want to buy the cannons when the war starts. And again, I hate talking about markets, and Israel and whatnot has kind of caught a lot of people off guard. We weren't prepared for a surprise attack. So maybe that analogy isn't worth thinking about. But generally, when these situations, especially with Russia, Ukraine, as soon as the war got started in earnest, the worst of the sell-off was actually over, and then a lot of the turbulence was in energy markets and foreign exchange. So that's the way I'm looking at it. All right, guys, hope you've enjoyed this. Let's catch up. Stay safe. Hug your family. Give them a kiss. Go out and get some fresh air. Get some sun. So have a great day. Bye-bye.